Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this fireside chat about the transition from Microsoft Power BI Premium per Capacity licensing, which is a mouthful, to Microsoft Fabric. I'm Godwin. I'm your Principal Cloud Evangelist here at Cloud Direct. And today we're joined by Knott, who leads our data and AI practice at Cloud Direct. Dan has been deeply involved in guiding organizations through their data transformation journeys, especially as it comes to adapting to Microsoft's evolving data landscape. Today we're going to cover in this short episode about why Microsoft is retiring the Power BI per capacity or P SKU and explore how Microsoft Fabric provides a streamlined and more flexible alternative. So hi Dan, let's jump straight into it. So why don't we start with a broad overview? Why is Power BI per capacity being phased out? And what's the timeline for this transition?
Thanks, Leon. I suppose first and foremost, Microsoft's decision to retire the premium SKU actually, it's in their broader strategy to unify their sort of services and the data platform in which they're, providing to the market. I think everyone's heard of Microsoft Fabric by now, so that fundamentally is carrying the badge in which Power BI is a key component. So, in terms of Power BI Premium, it makes sense to embed that in and then reduce the licensing model. And I suppose it also reduces the complexity as well, understanding the licensing model, what's needed per SKU, and do I need a pro license and a premium per user license can often get a little bit challenging. So there is that aspect in terms of why they're doing it. And when are they doing it? I suppose first and foremost, July the 1st, 2024, Microsoft made the decision to stop selling the, new customers weren't able to purchase the premium per SKU. So you can no longer buy the premium capacity SKU, however, those that are on EA agreements, etc., with them being renewed, you'll have to wait for those. You can still utilize the premium capacity in those SKUs, but obviously the short answer to the question really is it's getting retired, and you will at some point, regardless of where you are and what license model you have today with premium capacity, you will have to migrate to Microsoft Fabric.
Yeah, I'm seeing that kind of as a trend because Fabric it's kind of like as Microsoft Office is for productivity, so Fabric is for data, that suite of tools, and a lot of their design and engineering and investment effort is very much around those platforms as opposed to individual components. I'm seeing that more and more, so it makes sense for people to transition away, especially and try to do that in a timely fashion. So what are the specific advantages of a Microsoft Edge for, especially in the context of organizations who are currently using a per capacity Power BI SKU?
I guess first and foremost as well, it kind of comes into Synapse as well, but from a capacity, Power BI capacity, for the same price, like for like, you get fundamentally a lot more tools. You've got access to OneLake, you've got access to tools like Data Factory, Synapse Engineering. You can build out data lake houses. You can take access to what would be called dedicated SQL pools in Synapse, but Synapse Warehouse in Microsoft Fabric. So you get the availability to or access to these tools, and it might help as well from a consolidation perspective and a cost perspective as well. You can streamline costs, architecture. You're really getting a lot more bang for buck, as it were, and a lot more capability. And you might be able to look at transitioning from some of the other services, and we'll go on, and other questions around that. But you get access to a lot of fundamental tools that Microsoft have today, which people will know and have heard of under other services like Synapse, as an example.
Yeah, one of the tools. I'm a fan of some co-pilots. Some of them I don't use myself because they don't necessarily help me, but my second favorite co-pilot is actually Copilot for Power BI, because I love how it feels much more like a natural conversation where you express in text form your questions and it communicates the answers back to you in dashboards and pie charts and reports and graphs, and it's very interactive, very drill downable, and being able to have a conversation holistically with your data across your organization, I think is incredibly powerful, because I think historically organizations have treated data in these kind of silos, and having that AI that can see across the data, interpret data, and communicate, effectively turning data into information, I think that's really powerful. So it's one of the reasons why it's my second favorite Copilot. So let's have a look at sort of the flexibility and scalability side of things. How does the increased scalability and control impact operational efficiency?
Well, I guess in regards to that, the scalability options, they sort of transformed this a little bit here. So previously, with premium capacity, you would have to have a P1 SKU or higher, which obviously come with a cost point. However, now with Microsoft Fabric, you can go, and there is an element of licensing models around this, but a like-for-like P1 SKU is an F64 equivalent in Microsoft Fabric. And there, you get the same access of licensing model, but the features that you get available is one. But you can also go in and start on a lower SKU as well. So, for instance, there was, especially with Power BI, there was a licensing model balance, spectrum of how many users that you needed. So if you were on premium, you might have had pro licenses, but you might have only had 200 licenses, but you would have big data volumes, but you needed to make the jump to premium. Here, there's a few more granular steps that you could take. So there's different SKUs that you could take on to scale up. So that obviously adds a lot of benefit for customers. So they don't need to go to the highest price point to start with, and they can, scale as their data demands are needed as well. And, also around the cost savings, like I mentioned earlier, about consolidating tools. And then obviously, you've got that ability to use reserved instances as well. So saving up to 40% off a pay-as-you-go license cost, which is also an additional, benefit to businesses in terms of saving costs.
Okay, so we've got effectively a more agile, scalable platform in Fabric versus a traditional capacity-based SKU. In terms of the audience moving away, this affects me, I need to go and pivot. What are any practical steps that they can take to transition from their current operating model to a Fabric-based operating model?
I think first and foremost, looking at those Power BI usage metrics, so you can see within your capacity what the usage is like in terms of when data is being refreshed, who's using it, what reports are being used. So understanding, what is being used and what the workloads are. And then, using the tools that Microsoft offers, you can look at like workload compatibility within Fabric. So they've made it very easy in terms of migrating, a lift and shift. But when you go into Fabric, you've kind of got a lift and shift, which is, one way of doing it. But you may also look to refactor some of that. You might have chosen to build out, some data flows within Power BI, but you may wish to start using Synapse capabilities, Spark notebooks, or even building it out in a lake house and getting, the benefit of using that. So in terms of a smooth transition, look at what the approach is going to be, whether or not you're going to do a lift and shift, and look at how potentially refactoring can offer some benefits. And then looking at other elements as well, such as, exploring Fabric sort of content hub to become familiar in terms of, there's lots of templates coming out from Microsoft, lots of, approaches, whether it's refactoring or rehosting into Power BI Premium, from Power BI Premium into Microsoft Fabric. So there are a lot of tools coming. Microsoft are working extensively on this because, we'll probably come on to it as well. Outside of that is Synapse, which, there's a few other tools that they're consolidating into Fabric. So it makes sense to have migration paths and, guided paths in which customers can understand what they can migrate, how they can migrate, and what tools are out there that could potentially be, utilized with what they're using today.
Okay. So there is some work involved in terms of pivoting from their current state to a target state. But just to clarify, Does that affect the traditional Power BI Pro and Premium user licenses as opposed to the capacity licenses?
I suppose, in short, no. The license, the Pro licenses and the Premium per user licenses remain. It is probably worth noting, some licensing considerations. Customers may already have an E5 Office license model in place where everyone's got a Pro license by default, because Pro comes included within that. So there's no shift in the actual licensing model. So there'll be a Pro license, a Premium per user license, and then Power BI Premium capacity will be retired. And as such, Power BI licensing models will be available in Fabric. Probably worth noting that in F64 is the same functionality from a licensing model perspective, in that you don't need Pro licenses to view reports when you use an F64 or higher. If you're using a lower SKU than that, it will be required that you will need Premium per user or Pro licenses to consume and develop. I suppose on the F64 model, just to sort of make it clear, you will always need a Pro license for any developer that is going to develop content within your Fabric SKU. So hopefully that sort of helps simplify the licensing model a little bit. But yeah, in short, it's Pro, Premium per user, and obviously Fabric-based capacities with Power BI included.
Yeah, I can see there's a direction of travel in terms of, if it's bundled within your M365 SKU, that's probably likely to continue for the foreseeable. But those standalone SKUs, you can see that there is a sort of direction of travel where people are sort of moving up into those platform-based activities. So whilst those capacity SKUs are affected today, there may be other external SKUs that aren't bundled within a 365 license, and people should be aware of that in terms of, especially in this case, the looming deadline is January 2025, obviously with the exception of those on the EA agreement. So I want to thank you for your insights there, Dan, much appreciated. So as organizations start considering that shift, focus on the fact that it's 2025, and even if you're not directly affected, it's worth you evaluating Microsoft Fabric, because there seems to be a general direction of travel, and it's best to prepare for these things. So thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next episode.